Hey all, this is Iggy Mo. Welcome back to Estes Mountain. This is episode number 5, and in this episode we're going to be looking at working on the downtown Birch Heights area again. We had a kind of a rough outline from a couple videos past, but just kind of got the sense that it wasn't having quite the feel that we were looking at. So we're going to fix that today. The first thing that we need to do is we need to kind of get our highway situation straightened out. One of the things that we noticed about this is that there wasn't quite enough traffic going through our little community, if you will. And so we spent a little bit of time doing some terraforming, and I've cut a lot of that footage out and trying to set up to get a road that will be a little bit more heavily traveled, if you will. And the way that we did that is, as you saw, we tied into a connection that was, southeast of the area, if you will. So now what we're doing is we've got the road straightened out, and we're looking to improve the intersection and the kind of the flow through the city while keeping it thick, and then decided to go ahead and redo the downtown area. And one of the things I had to do to kind of fix that, as you can see, we had some, aside from it just not looking right, we also had kind of a workforce problem in which I didn't have enough people in the area. So we had to go in and we had to add some residential sections and kind of bump the residential capacity up a little bit. And so we took it from about 200 and something up to about 400. And I think that was going to help us with our continuing layout as we start to look at this. So we started by kind of trying to get the look and feel of the road right, looking back at the image. And so I decided on this tree-lined, 2-lane road, and as you can see, the traffic's really thick right now. And so now we're starting to kind of choose some buildings that kind of had more of the look of what it would look like, kind of like a touristy trap type area, as opposed to the auto-generated ones that we had, and even some of the fancier sushi bar ones that you saw in the last video. So we're just kind of laying those in and kind of doing some things with that at this point. Got a little bit of shifting that we need to do, and just kind of playing around with it just a little bit. Now, one of the things that we had to do, since we were looking at kind of a heavily traveled road, but there was no off-street parking, so to say, so we needed to kind of get some parking established, and I decided to put a fairly good sized parking lot back behind a lot of the buildings. And that's kind of the feel that we get in some of these touristy areas, that you can take this little side road and then you can park and you can go do your antique shopping or whatever the case may be. And so that's what we were kind of looking to do. Now we have a small area, so I'm just going to put the one parking lot in for now. We will add another one here in a little bit to kind of address some of the residential needs. Now I'm kind of playing around with, I saw this little gas station drive-in ice cream parlor kind of combo, and I kind of experimented with some of these retaining walls to try to kind of help give it a flatter zone to work with, and I just could never quite get it to work out right, and I'm still not quite sure why that is. I experiment with some of the roads, and the roads do a good job of flattening the terrain at the base of the walls, but it just never quite did what I want to do. I'd like to be able to kind of hide it but get that clean wall. I think I can do some things with some paths and stuff like that, but I couldn't get it to work. So if anybody's got any ideas, by all means, please toss me a comment or point me to a video on how that's done, and I would love to be able to learn that skill. So we're coming back in, we're readdressing this parking lot a little bit, kind of tightening things up a little bit. So you kind of want the idea that these buildings are situated such that everything's within walking distance. It's just kind of this one little stretch of of shops all kind of lined up in a row. Maybe the city grew up around this, that it was, this was the heart of, kind of an older city that, as it evolved, the citizens lived kind of off the side roads, off the hill, but everything was just kind of packed along this little bitty mini stretch of road, a couple blocks long kind of deal, and that's what we looked at there. And then I had this empty lot in the corner and decided to try my hand at a little bit of detailing. And what I've done here is, kind of laid in a fountain and starting to play with some of the ploppable concrete. I wiped out one of the buildings I didn't mean to do, but that was easily fixed. Kind of copy that thing back in, but kind of playing around with kind of adding the fountain and some seating, and we'll add a flower bed here in a second, and just kind of trying my hand at a little bit more detailing than what we've seen to this point. So here I was starting to outline this, retaining wall flower bed kind of structure to kind of help develop that corner of the plaza, and having all sorts of trouble with retaining walls. I know I can use networks to get multiple lines, but for some reason I just did single line segments, and it became a real trick to be able to get hold of the right node to be able to move things and line things up. So still learning about the Move It mod, and realizing I can hit a button that will let me toggle down and grab some of the lower nodes. Once I figured that out, it kind of started to come together, but that was a bit of a challenge for me. So again, this is a learning process, and that's one of the things that I had to figure out. So hopefully I can do it again in the future a little bit smoother and not quite so clunky, but it's kind of funny to kind of watch have that happen. So here we're filling in the flower bed with some bushes, trying out some different trees. First one I grabbed was a little bit big, so it'll get moved off into the back, but it's a cool looking tree. That may be one of the Mr. Mason trees that I have downloaded in this. It's kind of very realistic, very detailed, but low try count. And so we're just kind of laying it in, and now we're putting in kind of a parking lot for some of those higher end residential, since they do have on-street parking, but I just felt like the plaza was a little bit too big, so maybe I have this plaza right next to this little pull-up parking facility. Now we're back to wrestling with that gas station ice cream stand drive-in thing, and just never could quite get it right. And you'll see me come back to it a couple of times, and it may disappear at some point, but for now I'm going to leave it, and we'll kind of address that a little bit later. So here we're readjusting that building I wiped out for a second time, and I finally decided on using one of these parking lot roads so that I could have traffic that pulls into it, and then throw down a few decals over the top of it in order to be able to actually designate some of the parking spaces. So I'll do it on the small one, and I'd always struggled with kind of how these work and how these function, but it finally got it figured out, and then I went over and put it into the main lot as well. And you can see I have some issues with floating cars, and part of that's because the parking lot was put on a slope, and so I had to kind of I put the decals down, and then I moved the parking lot, and things kind of elevated, so I had to kind of bring those decals back down. Obviously in the intro video you saw I missed a couple, so I'll have to fix that as we move forward. So here we're kind of wrapping up the final detailing of this phase of construction of our downtown area. We'll probably put a little bit more, a few more shopping areas in maybe eventually as the area in the region grows, but for now I think it strikes a pretty good balance. So last thing to do is to go back in and kind of fix the road flow again. I'm using Traffic Manager and basically making the main road, continue through, and put some yield lanes for the roads that are coming in off the side to be able to connect to it. So about now, I think we'll kind of get ourselves into a live play and kind of give you kind of a quick tour. So we're now in game, and we're looking at that primary intersection from our highway, which as of yet has no number or name designation, our main intersection going into the community of Birch Heights. And to kind of give you kind of a sense of reference of where it is that we are, and we can come back and look at, here's our top of the mountain, and this is our Alpine Visitor Center equivalent up here, and our trail that comes up into here, and then we're coming in to our intersection here. Up front we got a little bit of industry. This was to kind of help spur the job growth and give us some people to serve the community in the commercial district that we've now developed in this particular video. Off to the right you see Thompson Lake, and here's the park area that we did a couple videos back. We come in and kind of look and get kind of a sense of what it is what we're trying to do. And one of the things that's interesting is that as this was connected, we built up a lot of traffic going through the area. And, you know, during the tourist season, that's not unrealistic for Estes Park. Part of that is because this is now the only road out of the zone or out of the map. If I come up and look, you know, you can see that the road kind of winds its way back around and then it exits the map here. This is the road that I eliminated earlier in the video that used to reroute itself over to here. So I used to kind of tie in originally, you can see kind of the trail where it went, and then when we created the map we actually took out a bunch of it, but I've now cleared. But you know, maybe someday we'll hook this road into that and bring it on around, create the bypass that effectively kills the city. You know what bypasses do. Commercial folks here on the main drag will be a little upset, but when all this traffic dries up. But for now, it's got kind of the feel and the pace, and it's, you know, it's a little bit of stop and go going through the highlights. You know, you can kind of get a sense down at the street level that this starts to look a lot like our maps of the downtown area of Estes Park. It kind of captures the feel, you know, in my opinion anyway. Again, we kind of created this with just the idea of being able to create these views from, you know, singular locations. You know, obviously we use a lot of the rock props and a lot of the rock assets, you know, a lot of trees. But, you know, again, we're not doing the whole map, we're just kind of doing individual views. So if we kind of proceed on down through Main Street, we can kind of see some of the different structures we're kind of looking. We've got, you know, kind of our parking lot with, apparently elevated cars happening here. I'll have to fix that. But, you know, it is a special place, so why not? And then I've got a building here on the end that is right next to my plaza with the fountain. So, you know, people can sit and kind of watch things go by with our new parking lot for these high-end residential zones. So this is my first attempt at kind of a plaza. It's very simple, not heavily detailed. Maybe we'll add some more. You know, and again, I don't, you know, pretend to be, you know, one of these photorealistic detailers and some of the other Skylines creators are. They're just absolutely amazing. But for me, this is fairly detailed and kind of captures the vision and the feel of what I want to do, and I'm enjoying it. So I guess that's kind of the whole point of why we play this game. You know, kind of see some of the add-on residential sections that we had back up over here, and that's kind of the view of what we have happening. You know, we go down to the lake, kind of take a look and kind of get a sense of what's going on up on the hillside. You know, kind of the town kind of winding its way through. Again, that is a lot of traffic, and we may have to address that at some point. But just this is kind of the view that gives you kind of the feel of the whole Thompson Lake, you know, mountain village up on the side of the hill kind of look. And, you know, I'm really enjoying the series and having a good time playing with this at this point. So, you know, leave us some feedback down below and tell us what you'd like to see next. You know, you can make some suggestions. You know, we do need a name for that lake that's back over here. So if you got any ideas what we can call that one, you can see our babbling brook of a torrent river crashing down through the mountains. You know, and kind of it's still got some flood issues up there, but you know, it is what it is, and we'll evolve it and we'll fix it as we start to kind of work on this. But it's starting to come together kind of nicely. I like the mountainside kind of look of what it is that we're trying to do. So anyway, you know, that's our city. I hope you're having a good time and having as much fun with it as I am. And for now, we'll see you next time in the next video. Have a great afternoon. Have a blessed day. Bye.